Fellow Ugandans, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to address you again today on the progress the education sector is making to mitigate the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. As you all know, our efforts as government have been to ensure safety, first and foremost, for all people within the country as such. Now, the closure of all institutions of learning was among the first COVID-19 measures that the President issued. And as a result, 15 million learners are for now at home and not able to report to the institutions of learning. Let me say that as a country, our typical institutions of learning have characteristics that are unique to our setting. For example, in the pre-primary, primary and secondary levels of education, there is overcrowding due to high enrollment levels. In addition, the majority of our institutions of learning at all levels of our education system have boarding facilities, of which most of them are congested. Besides these, the learners in our institutions are not necessarily from the community around the institution. We have students who have to move across geographical regions of the country to the institutions of learning. These characteristics are unique to us as a country, and therefore whatever measures we come up with to keep our students safe, we have to do so in light of the context. As I informed you in my last two statements, the one of April the 4th, 2020, and April the 20th, 2020, the Ministry of Education and Sports put in place a response plan at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in our country. This plan focuses on three main areas. One, continuity of learning during the closure of institutions of learning. Two, preparedness for reopening of institutions of learning when it is safe to do so. And three, ensuring effective teaching and learning upon the reopening of the institutions of learning. Now, the President directed that a subcommittee be constituted to look into the issue of reopening of institutions of learning. This committee had representation from the other ministries, such as health, local government, ICT, and national guidance, science, innovation, and technology. The committee also consulted with a technical team of scientists that have been working closely with the President on his response to this pandemic. After taking into consideration all the views, we resolved that the time was not yet right to have learners go back to the institutions of learning, not even for candidate classes as we had earlier thought. It was based on this guidance that Cabinet advised the President to maintain the closure of institutions of learning for another month, as he communicated to the nation, as you all remember. Since then, we have continued to observe the trends of COVID-19 pandemic within our own country, and we continue to listen to our local team of scientists. In addition, we also listen to the steps and experiences other countries are having when it comes to full operation of institutions of learning. What we are learning from our local trends of COVID-19, as well as experiences from countries that have closed but later reopened institutions of learning, is that we need to exercise patience and self-restraint on the matter of normal resumption of institutions of learning. In the meantime, the Ministry of Education and Sports is working in the following: strengthening our interventions for continuity of learning during the closure of institutions of learning. Now, when implementing this intervention, we have designed it keeping in mind the socio-economic and geographical context of the average learner in our country. As such, government has focused on facilitating the process of having the learner learn from their homes. Therefore, for primary and secondary education levels, we are delivering continuity of learning through radio and TV stations around the whole country. In addition, government provided printed learning materials for 25% of learners for the start as we wait for more funds to scale up our intervention countrywide. I'd like to appeal to all parents now and guardians of our learners. Our students, our children need you to support them as much as government may be doing its part. The effectiveness of this homeschooling approach we are utilizing is a shared responsibility, as we have said before, if our learners are to get the most out of it. As a parent, you must take the effort to find out when the lessons are broadcasting on the radio or TV station. If you are not available for that 1 hour, have somebody else responsible, or an older sibling, or an adult in the home that will be with the children as they listen to their lessons. The above interventions constitute the first phase of continuity of learning with a focus on remedial teaching and learning for primary and secondary education levels. I'd like to take this opportunity now to also appreciate our local government government structures that have been key in this phase of continuity of learning. However, I'm also aware that for several reasons, some of our learners that we had targeted for the first phase of continuity of learning experienced challenges due to many things. One, some families did not have a radio set or a TV set to listen to the lessons. Secondly, even some families that have the radios or TV sets experience technical difficulties with the quality of the broadcast signals. Thirdly, the need for printed materials is greater even in the few districts initially covered. And fourth, some learners missed because at the time of lesson broadcast, they may be involved in some home chores and other critical activities in the home setting. And also sometimes the level of education of some parents or guardians may not allow them to help their learners in using home study materials. So these brought some problems in some of the learning in some areas of our country. As a ministry, we will continue with the implementation of continuity of learning for primary and secondary education levels through the homeschooling and distance learning approach of radio and television. In the second phase of this continuity of learning for primary and secondary education levels, we will cover the entire syllabi for all levels. In this regard, as you may have heard, the government will supply a radio set to each household. This is in the effort so that all families can enable the children to access these learning materials. Secondly, the ministry is in advanced stages of developing homeschooling study materials for the entire primary and secondary education levels. We are also going to provide printed learning materials for all subjects and all learners. In addition to that, all lessons in the printed materials form shall also be broadcast through the radio and TV stations. Therefore, I wish to call upon all families and our villages and communities to support government in ensuring that this second phase of continuity of learning becomes really effective. Now, for universities and other tertiary institutions, the ministry's departments of business, technical, vocational education and training, BTVET, and teacher instructor education and training are working with the principals of the institutions to generate home study learning modules and materials for continuity of learning. It is our desire as a sector that all universities and tertiary institutions do e-learning as soon as possible. In this regard, the ministry has already put in guidelines for implementation of e-learning. The National Council for Higher Education has now issued and communicated these guidelines as I speak. However, allow me to observe that one of the critical requirements in these guidelines for e-learning is that no continuing learner should be left behind or excluded from learning when a learning institution starts implementing the e-learning approach as a COVID-19 response intervention. I hope our universities will really take care to ensure that all our learners are included. We are very strict about this. That's why the sector always tries to listen to everybody, because there are those who are easily listened to, but there are those who think they can't even access those who may listen or even access the ministry. But it is our concern and it is our duty to serve all. So we appeal to the universities that nobody will be left behind when these options begin to be implemented at the university level. On the matter of an e-learning agenda for the education sector, there has been a misconception in the media that the Ministry of Education and Sports prohibited e-learning. This is absolutely not true. It's even unfair from the ministry. We cannot be the ones banning what we are promoting. A number of institutions, including Uganda Christian University, Makerere University, and several international schools in basic and secondary levels, have been utilizing e-learning even before the outbreak of COVID-19. What we are doing as a sector is to put forward a comprehensive sector-wide agenda to guide delivery of formal education through e-learning mechanisms, because it has implications on quality of education for the country and its citizens. Once the ICT and e-learning framework is complete, we shall communicate it to our stakeholders and the public at large, because you all deserve to know. Now, preparations for reopening of schools and institutions. The Ministry of Education and Sports has received sector-specific standard operations procedures from the Ministry of Health to guide us in determining our sector's readiness to reopen institutions of learning. My ministry shall review these SOPs and advise Cabinet in due course. I am convinced that the God we serve and have been praying to will soon deliver us from this pandemic. In the meantime, I appeal to you all to keep safe and ensure the safety of our children across the country. I thank you and God bless you.